big, beautiful bill, and I always have, I always will. But if 2 is more certain, it does go a little bit quicker because you can do the immigration stuff early.
President-elect Trump is set to meet with Senate Republicans on Capitol Hill tonight. As a matter of fact, his car is expected to arrive at the Capitol any minute now. We'll show you those pictures when they arrive. The contours of those discussions are as follows. There's a process by which the Trump agenda can pass the Senate with only 50 votes. The short term is called reconciliation. The question is, do you do one of those bills or 2? And there are all sorts of complicating factors on which is a better strategy. Among the things President-elect Trump will discuss with Senate Republicans tonight. To help us understand that and other transition-related issues, Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us from West Palm Beach, Florida. Taurean Small joins us from Capitol Hill. Caitlin, let's start with you. At the press conference yesterday at Mar-a-Lago, the President-elect basically said, I'm for either one of these things, depending on which is more successful. It's a big part of the Trump agenda. It's a big decision strategically and otherwise. True?
That's exactly right. And you mentioned this reconciliation process, and it's kind of a complicated, procedural issue that we've seen before, but it is a way for the Congress, especially the Senate, to be able to pass a piece of legislation with just majority support and not require that 60 vote threshold. That's a big way of saying there is an interest in getting a lot into one bill, at least on the House side, to be able to pass this with majority support and not have to, go through those procedural hurdles. What Trump is saying is essentially, yes, he wanted one big bill, but he's leaving it up to congressional leaders to decide which is the best way to go about it. And there are 2 different kind of main priorities for this administration incoming, which is part of it is addressing economic issues. Extending the Trump tax cuts is a big priority, and also the immigration component. And yesterday I asked the president-elect, how much can you do through executive order, or how much are you prioritizing Congress working on legislation to enact your immigration priorities? And he suggested that he could do a lot through executive order on immigration. So kind of reading the tea leaves there, suggesting that a big priority is to address these economic components. But this is a big issue, obviously, for Capitol Hill, where Taurean is, because the House has an even slimmer majority than it had just last month. And we saw all of the wrangling that had to happen in order to get a budget bill passed. You still have a group of conservative lawmakers opposed to any new spending without any cuts in current spending. So this remains a big challenge. So as much as we're talking about the procedural hurdles, the issue at hand is getting the president's agenda through a Congress that, even though he has control, his party has control, the margins are slim. Indeed, they are.
Taurean Small on Capitol Hill. And as I mentioned, when the president-elect arrives at the United States Capitol, we'll show you those pictures. Should be any moment now. Taurean, the president is there in part because he is in Washington in preparation for tomorrow's funeral for the 39th president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, that to be held at Washington National Cathedral, building in a conversation with Senate Republicans tonight to tease out the strategy. Give us your perspective from the Capitol.
Yeah, quite a busy week. I mean, also his confirmations, his appointees to his cabinet are seeking confirmation to see where the votes are there. So it's a pretty busy week. And it is interesting to note that as former President Jimmy Carter lies in state, Donald Trump will be on the Hill. It's expected that he's going to pay his respects before starting these conversations with Senate Republicans. But just a few days ago, I mean, just at the press conference, actually, he said he made clear to distance himself from Jimmy Carter when asked about his previous bad words about the former president. Though in his statements, he said that, he respected what he's done for the country. Donald Trump, leading up to Election Day, said that Joe Biden will be remembered as a more ineffective president than Jimmy Carter. So it is a striking thing to note out here that he'll be looking to pass this agenda at the same time that the former president is lying in state. As Caitlin Huey-Burns brought up, this will be a key moment for Trump to gauge where his influence stands among the Republican conference in the Senate. The House has been pretty interesting to watch the splintering among policy policy priorities. And it's also something to note that Trump has invited several members of the House Republican Conference to West Palm Beach this weekend to continue those conversations, most notably the House Freedom Caucus members who were not necessarily on the same page during the House speakership vote just a week ago.
Caitlin, I want to go back to you to talk about something that was injected into the coverage of the Los Angeles fires today by the president-elect, reviving a long-running dispute with the current governor of California, Gavin Newsom, about water policy dealing with water in Northern California, making it to the Central Valley and Southern California farmers. The president-elect erroneously suggested that has something to do with water availability to fight these wildfires in Los Angeles. It does not by any stretch of the imagination, yet it stands out there and is part of the conversation. Help us out with this.
Yeah, Major, this is referring to a social media post that the president-elect made criticizing Gavin Newsom. And this goes back to this long-standing essentially gripe that he has with the governor of California as it pertains to water policy. I was with Donald Trump when he was campaigning last year, and he gave a press conference at his own resort in Southern California, just about 40 miles south of where those wildfires are. And he really railed against Gavin Newsom for water policy, essentially, arguing that when Donald Trump was president, he signed in federal regulations to open up waterways from the north to the south. This was addressing issues that farmers had raised in terms of getting money to their, getting water to their crops. Gavin Newsom had sued over environmental concerns, implemented his own policy, and at that press conference last year, Trump said that he would withhold federal funding for California if Gavin Newsom didn't reverse course on his position here. The bigger issue at play, however, is that Donald Trump has done this over his past administration, is doing it now, criticizing leaders in states suffering from a crisis at a time where politics really isn't at play here. People are wondering how they can get to safety, what's going to happen to their homes, how these fires are going to be put out. And Trump's interest here is in terms of politics and going after the governor of a state suffering from something like this, reviving old feuds, and as you mentioned, erroneously attributing that to what's happening here.
Caitlin Huey-Burns in West Palm Beach, Taurean Small on Capitol Hill. Thank you very much.